What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Simple Man Podcast. My name is Brody. Just want to start you off with a little fact of the day. This is a Star Wars fact. The fact is Season 3 of The Mandalorian is absolute garbage. At least according to the comments on my Instagram page. They're just so sure of themselves and that it's just 100% fact that, no fans could have possibly enjoyed Season 3 of Mando. And it's garbage. So I guess we just have to accept it. Honestly, that's all we can really do at this point. Nah, I hope you're ready to shill it up with me. I thought the finale was honestly probably one of my favorite episodes of Mando of all time. And there were just so many mixed reactions to season 3 overall. And I do think it's very interesting when that happens in Star Wars. So we'll definitely talk about that. And I hope you guys enjoyed the finale and the season overall. I really did. And I thought it was a pretty fun, fitting end to everything. And honestly, it would be a pretty good end to the Mandalorian overall, in my opinion. But obviously, they're going to continue the story. And we'll see what happens in season 4. But before we get into all of that, I just want to let you guys know I am so close to my goal of 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. About 100 away, so if you're not subscribed there, would super appreciate it. We're getting there, and we're going to get monetized, baby. We got to make those pennies. I mean, obviously that is the goal overall, but honestly, just building more of a fan base and a community around the positivity of Star Wars. That's really my goal overall, so definitely subscribe to Brody1 Kenobi on YouTube. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, hit your boy with a rating. That would be super appreciative. I do want to bring guests back on the show within the next few weeks. I'm still planning some stuff out and trying to get people lined up, but definitely expect some guests. I'm sure you guys are getting tired of me just jibber jabbering and complaining about the haters out there, but hey, it's what we do. We're the Simple Man Podcast, just trying to make our way in the galaxy. And I've been having fun though. I've been really having a good time talking to you guys about Mando and enjoying that every week. It's been super, super fun. And I'm sad that it's over and we have to wait a solid amount of time before, our next season. We do have Ahsoka coming in August, which is awesome, but there's just nothing that beats those Mando feels, honestly. And I'm not exactly sure when it's going to come out, season 4. I would assume late 2024 or early 2025. Either way, we're going to have to wait, a solid amount of time. But I'm sure it'll be worth it, as season 3 was, at least to me. Man, I don't know. I really feel like season 3 has gotten the Last Jedi treatment. And if you guys were following my stories on Instagram this past week, I was just kind of going off because I'm just people are obviously entitled to their opinions and whatnot, but it's just the way that you say your opinion, I think, that really kind of dictates whether or not you're being fair or not. There's a difference between saying, I think The Mandalorian is this because of this and this and this, rather than saying it's garbage. I can't believe anybody would like it. What are we watching the same show? This thing's trash. It's just, there's a different vibe, obviously, to those two opinions. And I like to go after people who are coming at me with some sideways opinions like that, saying I'm an idiot and a shill and a meat rider for liking this show, when these negative comments are not the only fans. And there are obviously, positive comments and replies, but overall, negative people want to come and shout their opinions because they're trying to find people who will agree with them. At least that's my assessment of it, and it just really feels like, the negative people are much louder because they're kind of trying to find their people to agree with them. Whereas, people who are just enjoying it, having fun, don't necessarily have that fuel to go and comment every single day about it, where they're just consuming and liking the posts and all the discussion and just having fun with it. And there's a lot of that, and I really do appreciate that about my page and my followers and stuff. Most of them are there to just enjoy and have fun and not really get too overcritical about it. And not to say that you can't be critical of Star Wars, but I truly am of the opinion that like Star Wars at the root is for kids, and like we shouldn't necessarily be looking at this like it's like Oscar worthy, even though some stuff does get to that point. I just don't think it's like meant to be critiqued like some serious, Scorsese film or something like that. But that, I don't know. It's just interesting. I think again, it's getting the Last Jedi sort of review from fans. Some fans think this was the best season. It was just the most epic and most fun season out of them all. And some fans think this is literally, dog water that shouldn't be even part of Star Wars lore and that sort of thing. And I always find it super interesting when there's that reaction to the content. And it's just really interesting. There's people who friends that I have online that have just completely differing opinions than I do. And I've had the chance to talk to some of them, and I don't know. My honest, true assessment. Obviously, I hear a lot of opinions, and I have a lot of discussions about this stuff, and it truly, truly feels to me like people's expectations were like crazy, crazy high for this show, and I mean they should be. It's like the number one show in the world, and I mean season 1 and 2 were incredible, and really were some of the best Star Wars ever. So the expectations going into season 3 where this has to be even better. And I mean, when you reach such a level that season 2 did with the climax and the ending, it's just hard to beat. And I think people's expectations were that it was going to continue to have that level each and every episode. And it's hard to meet that, from regardless of what characters are there or what the story is. I mean, when expectations are so so high, it just is setting up for failure basically. But and again, not to say that you shouldn't have high expectations for Star Wars, but I mean there does come a point when you know you're approaching every single thing with this is trash and all. Okay, let's see what Favreau's got in the store now. And it's just when you have that attitude going into everything, I don't know, it just leads to disappointment. And I just try and kind of go in and there is a little bit of like just let go, just have fun. I mean, I guarantee you all these people who are complaining that season 3 was trash would have loved this season when they were 10 years old and wouldn't have had any of the major complaints that people have had about the character progression and the story arcs and these plot points here. It's like, dude, I had to shit on the prequels this week because just people were talking so much crap on Mando. It's like, Star Wars has always been like this. You were just a kid before and you didn't care about all these little critiques and nitpicks. Whereas now you're an adult and you have an adult brain, and yes, you can analyze story better and the plot points and whatnot. That doesn't mean Star Wars is supposed to be any more intelligent or intellectual than it was before. Andor, honestly, this is Andor's fault. Like, it turned like Star Wars into this drama that is like, and again, like I like Andor and I love that show. It was great for a lot of reasons, but honestly not a lot of Star Wars reasons. Like it was for Andor is great TV in general and to a general audience, but I don't think it hits like the main Star Wars feels that everybody loves in Clone Wars and in Rebels, in the movies themselves. Like it does not hit those same feels whatsoever. It's just a good drama show that has Star Wars aspects in it, and that deep level slow burn writing that a lot of you know Game of Thrones people like, and HBO type shows. It was definitely more along those lines, more adult, and I get that. That's awesome. Adults can have that show, but Mando is for family. It is for everybody. And honestly, season 3 was just jam packed of every single thing that Star Wars encompass, which is why I love it so much. And I think that's why it's such a successful show, because it applies to people who are 3 years old or 100 years old. Like I've had conversations with fans who are 10 years old, 20 years old, 30, 40, 50. And that's just like literally my favorite part of like Star Wars is the fact that like you'll go to Target and you see some grown man in the aisle, probably myself, you'll probably see me there, looking around at the toys, at the Legos, at the action figures. because they're a collector. They've been a Star Wars fan their whole lives, and they're still enjoying it. I love that. And then you see or hear a little kid over there to the side. He's like, "Oh, little Grogu! I love Grogu!" And that stuff just warms my heart. The fact that kids are still falling in love with Star Wars, and that there are these different aspects for everybody. And Mando encompasses that. That's my opinion. I feel like season 3 nailed it on the head. I I am going to respond to some specific comments and opinions that I just think are honestly dead wrong. But overall, I mean, I think you guys already know. I loved it, and I don't think it hit as high of a high and had that surprise factor that season 2 did. The season finale of season 2, I mean, it was incredible. That Luke scene, it was so unexpected. I mean, I never would have thought Luke was coming, and he comes in, just slays the dark troopers. Such a crazy cool ending. But honestly, what happened before that in that episode, like, you don't even really remember, right? I mean, Moff Gideon and Mando fought, and then what, like, they killed a bunch of troopers and stuff. Like, I don't know, like, it's the last 10 minutes that makes that entire episode so special. Whereas the season finale of season 3 to me was from minute 1 to the very last minute, just action packed, so full on, so epic. And it really just finished with such a sweet ending with Din and Grogu. And to me, honestly, this is a very bold statement, but I would rather watch the season 3 finale over and over than the season 2. I would watch the last 10 minutes of season 2 over and over, and I have for the last 2 years. But honestly, as an episode as a whole, season 3 was knock your socks off, action packed, epic from start to finish. So, I mean, I know that's bold to say, but that's kind of my opinion. And as a Luke Skywalker fan, I mean, I told you guys last week, definitely my favorite character of my entire life. I was tripping balls when Luke was there. I I just don't think that episode overall, other than the last 10 minutes or so, was better. Like, I mean, and it's just crazy when you look at the ratings. Like, I'm not a huge ratings guy. Like, I'm not gonna look at ratings to form my own opinion. I personally think it's interesting to look at what the fans just overall. It's a good census for the reaction to the show. To look on IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, that sort of thing. And chapter 16, which is the season 2 finale, is rated a 9.8 out of 10, which is, I mean, a crazy high, rating for anything. That's a great rating. But the season 3 finale is only like an 8.6, and maybe that has to do with the story, not so much the action, but I don't know. It just feels like people were very, very nitpicky of season 3 and didn't really remember a lot of the complaints. And I mean, there were so many of the same complaints about season 3 that people had about season 1 and 2. And I don't know if just people forgot because it's been a while, but like, it not sticking to one consistent story the whole way through, going on the side missions on a random planet, introducing random characters, and then they're not really there again. All that has been in Mando since season 1. And it just feels like people forgot. And I honestly was really feeling like there's a lot of hypocrisy going on in terms of like the fan response to this season. And one thing that I really think was interesting that people just kept harping on the entire season was that like Din wasn't the main character, and I just don't see that. I really don't understand where that's coming from. Like, he's literally the main focus of every episode. Everything that's happening in the show, literally everything that's happening, is because of Din and the actions he's taken. Bo-Katan wouldn't be there without Din. Grogu wouldn't be there without Din. The armor, like his entire cult is there because of Din. And while they did take time to focus on other characters and other aspects of the show, I mean, Din is still the heart. And I mean, Grogu along with that, obviously, they're the heart of the show, and they were. At least to me, I mean, I didn't mind Bo-Katan getting some more screen time. Honestly, it completely turned around the character for me. I was not a Bo-Katan fan before this season, and now I love her. Like, she was so badass in this season that I just couldn't help but fall in love with the character. And like, she like really gave another like a fresh look to the series where it wasn't just Din and Grogu. They added kind of a third member to their clan of this middle ground clan of Mandalorians. They kind of became a clan of three, even though obviously nothing was official there. Like seeing the ending where Grogu blocks all the flames from them and that shot of them three together. Oh man, I like that was my response. I was like, "Let's go, clan of three, let's go!" And I just love that aspect. And that was like a main complaint was that Bo-Katan was getting so much screen time, and I was just like, "What is the deal?" I don't know. I just I like the fact that they brought Paz's character, more a detailed look into him and gave him a little bit more of motivation in the series. He has a son, and they showed him repeatedly as the kind of defender Mandalorian of their group, and the way he ended and everything just made the character important. And I mean, without focusing on that, without that fourth episode where he loses his son and they go save him, his death isn't nearly as impactful, and nobody probably would have cared, but people loved that scene. And overall, like, that was probably the most sad scene of the whole season. And honestly, I really like how they made seven, or the seventh episode of the season, like the sad one and the tragic ending, and then the finale kind of turned it around, and it was like this happy ending. So I kind of didn't expect that. I really thought like the Empire was going to come back and just like wreck them, but it kind of makes sense that all these hundreds of Mandalorians come together and they fight back for Mandalore. So I don't know. I've been absolutely ranting. I'm getting some things off my chest, honestly. Just from my perspective of hearing so much negativity in the comments, and I'm not there to look for it. Like, I genuinely like interacting with those who are civil and appreciative and enjoying it. And even when, people are like, oh, I didn't like it, but it was because of this, and I actually did like this about it, that is like 100% fine. Please comment that type of stuff, like what you didn't like, what you did like. But again, it's just like the way you go about it, and calling people names or talking shit to somebody else. That's just not cool. And like, it just gets so tiring hearing those types of things. So sorry if I'm just ranting, getting that off my chest, but I gotta do what I gotta do. Man, I don't know. The season finale, I thought it was cool. I do see people's complaint of it being like a little rushed in a sense, or not giving it, the proper time to breathe. But honestly, I watched it twice. Like the first time I watched it, obviously loved it. But the second time I watched it, I was like, okay, like this is a good episode. Like the second time really made me feel like this was one of my favorite episodes of the whole show. Just because the pacing wasn't bothering me as much. Obviously, I knew what was coming. And again, I'll keep repeating it. Watch Star Wars twice before you form your opinion. Like, I really don't see the harm in that. But people will literally watch it once and just go to the internet with their feelings and opinions. And the first watch is such an emotional thing for Star Wars fans. It's weird. Like, I know you guys know what I'm talking about. Like the first time you watch it, you can't necessarily focus on everything, and you're like trying to process it while watching it at the same time, and it just doesn't make for the best viewing experience as a super fan. Whereas the second time you watch it, you've already had a little bit of time to process things, and now you can kind of just like go in and enjoy what's in front of you. So I get some flack for saying that, like, oh, you got to watch it twice to like it. And it's like, no, it's just like I know what it's like as a Star Wars super fan. And I had that response with the sequels. Like the first time I watched the sequels, I was just like, each one, I definitely was kind of like, what the fuck? What was that? Like, what did I just watch? Kind of thing. Couldn't process everything, like you forget little things, you remember the big moments. But when you go and watch it again, you kind of just start to appreciate the little things about it, which makes Star Wars so great. Background characters and little lines that like maybe you didn't notice, details in the background, a ship here that, oh, maybe your favorite ship is in the background. You literally had no idea because you only watched it once. Like, that's the sort of things that make Star Wars so great. Seeing the Millennium Falcon in Revenge of the Sith, it's just a little Easter egg. Like, you're not going to notice that the first time you watch it. And that's just kind of my point is like, with Star Wars specifically, maybe not all forms of TV and movies and whatnot, but with Star Wars specifically, as a Star Wars superfan, watch it at least twice before you get all, upset and bothered by it. But yeah, I don't know. I thought it was a really interesting season, and Star Wars is in a really good place, and I don't know if people just like don't want it to just be good. I don't know, man. There was a lot of pages that were or Instagram pages that it was unexpected, like their reaction from it, and I was surprised just because I've known these pages and these people for quite some time, and they've enjoyed mostly everything. They've been positive about mostly everything, and then this season came along, and they like just had a complete like tone change of the way that they like critiqued the show, and like it was just like it seemed like everybody was like a serious movie critic, and like you know we're talking about pacing and character development and story arc and plot points and plot holes, and it's just like, dude, oh my gosh, it's Star Wars, like calm down. And again, I think that's why I kind of blame it on Andor, because Andor was just such a smaller story. Like we're talking about just a few characters and how what's going on with them, and like the actions that they're taking. And there is this larger galactic story going on, but they don't have to fill us in as much about what's going on because we know what it is. The Empire's growing, the rebellion's growing, and like they didn't have to focus on like the world building necessarily. We were just living in it and being there with Cassian and Mon Mothma and whatnot. Whereas Mando is telling this crazy big story of these galactic events that are like, this is the meat and potato, like this is the A New Hope of that time period, or the Empire Strikes Back, or whatever. Like it's this giant moment in the galaxy's history where I don't know if I'm phrasing that right. Like Andor is as well, but they were just building the whole time. It was like it wasn't this giant climactic event in the galaxy. It was just Andor's sort of, climax of that point in his life. But I don't know if that makes any sense. But I don't know. I just think Mando is set up more to show us like kind of what the movies do. There's not as much time, so they get right into the action, and it's just knock your socks off until the very end. And that like kind of brings me to another major complaint of this season, that nothing happened. Like people were saying that nothing happened, and Din's character didn't grow at all, or like there was just nothing going on. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean? And that there was no consistent storyline, and I just don't. I'm really not following that, and that type of comment was making me feel like, are we watching the same show? Like, legitimately, I don't need to necessarily walk you guys through the show. I mean, you watched it, but like, there's definitely setup, the middle point and the end. Like, all this stuff is going on in Din and Grogu's life. Now, okay, before I get into that, I will say the whole fact that Grogu came back in the Book of Boba Fett when, the season 2 finale was the way it was, I do think that was a mistake. And like, I season 3 maybe did have, it was effective negatively because of that, but I'm also of the opinion that you just have to like move on. If you're going to keep watching this stuff, like move on, accept what's happened and move on so you can enjoy the next stuff. Like if you're going to keep harping on what happened in the Book of Boba Fett, I mean, then stop watching the future content involving these characters, like wait for Ahsoka. Don't watch The Mandalorian. If you hate what happened in season or in the Book of Boba Fett so much, then don't watch. I mean, I don't know. Some people don't like when I say stuff like that, but that's how it feels. Like if you don't like Kylo Ren and Rey, stop watching them. Like it just doesn't make sense to continue putting yourself through this thing that you're going to consistently be reminded of what happened in the Book of Boba Fett. But I will agree though. I do think that was a mistake, and I'm not exactly sure why. I've heard a lot of theories and insider information about why that would happened, and I mean it probably does come from Disney being scared of losing Grogu and the hype that Grogu had. Um, I definitely think they would have benefited with like where Mando picks up in the Book of Boba Fett, like with episode 5 and 6. that could have been, season 3, the first few opening episodes easily. And Mando still could have went back and helped Boba, and there was like an epic thing with them. But I think that would have been the perfect time to give Mando some time alone, as in the Book of Boba Fett, where, I mean, you're showing some adventures without Grogu, and I definitely don't think they needed to bring him back in that. But again, it is what it is, and it was where it was. When season 3 started, we knew coming into it that Grogu and Din were going to be together, and I think that really did start off people on the wrong foot in a lot of ways. But again, I kind of just tend to go with, we're here now, this is what we've got, and let's judge it for what it is and not what I want it to be and what I think it should have been, But obviously, I understand it can be hard to think like that sometimes. But uh, so that being said, I mean, it started where it did with season 1, and they go back to Navarro, which Navarro is such a huge part of Din's character and his life. And the story overall. I mean, it's where the show starts, basically, and where so many of the events of season 1 happen. So Navarro was just super important to this story, and I think it's like kind of like the Tatooine of the Mandalorian. This is like where we're going to come back to, and obviously we see Din and Grogu end up sort of getting their own place there, and that was awesome. But, Navarro being such an important part to Din and Grogu, I mean, it made sense that there would be some adventures or action on Navarro involving Grief Karga. And that's where we start. And, the pirates are involved to sort of like give, Mando a reason to defend Navarro. And Navarro's under attack by these guys. And it comes full circle when they actually have to defend the planet from the entire pirate army, and the whole Mando team goes over there and defeats them. And like, that was just so huge to see the Mandos going from being hidden on this planet to being the heroes of Navarro. And I mean, that, like, I don't know how that isn't just so like George Lucas type of writing. Like, it just comes full circle, and like it parallels the season 1 in such a great way. Obviously, that's just kind of what happens in the first episode and how that spans into the rest of the season. But episode 2, obviously, they go to Mandalore. They set up all this Mandalorian lore with the mythosaur. We see Din redeem himself in the waters, which, come to think of it, they're right next to Moff Gideon, probably. They had no idea, so neither did Moff Gideon. And that's a pretty cool kind of thread there, that they don't mention or anything that they were next to him, but it's like they were right there and they didn't even know Moff Gideon was there. And the one episode I will say it was honestly pretty unnecessary was the third episode, where they went so far into Dr. Pershing and then he just wasn't even there in the season. Like, I don't know why. They could have done that same story for sure, and made it shorter and just intertwined it with that episode a little bit better than giving it its whole own like 30 minutes. But I'm sure they did have plans to do it that way, and it just didn't work. But that was definitely a little bit of an odd episode to include overall in the season. But honestly, from there, I thought the episodes were just fantastic and they were fun. And we got to see some different elements of each character in those episodes. The fourth episode was when Paz Vizsla's son Ragnar gets captured and whatnot, and that's just building the Mandalorians' relationship with Bo-Katan and back with Din, as they've now been redeemed, and Bo obviously got her castle destroyed or whatnot. And I just feel like that was a necessary episode to show how Bo could actually lead these Mandalorians who had a very strong distaste for her and her people. Now they believe in her, and like, she selflessly helped them save Ragnar. So I mean, I loved that episode. And then also within that episode, we got to see Grogu and Kelleran Beck. And I mean, that was epic. Like, that was insane. So I mean, that episode was great, and people didn't like that episode for some reason. I don't know why. The fifth episode, I mean, that was a freaking banger, dude. It was a full-on pirate Mandalorian battle. Again, they save Navarro, and they are the heroes of Navarro. a lot of stuff obviously happens with like Grief Karga and Din, and like again, it just felt so reminiscent of season one in a lot of ways, and came full circle there where, the Mandos aren't hiding anymore and they're the heroes. Chapter 6, I mean, I'll give it to you, like Lizzo wasn't the greatest actor, but like there's been some bad acting in Star Wars before, and again, just not that big of a deal for, them to give Lizzo a part. She's a very popular person in the world, and she just gets a lot of hate, obviously, for the way she looks. And I mean, it's just obviously that's not chill. Like, I thought it was fine. Jack Black was freaking awesome. Both of them are like super huge Star Wars fans, so they're gonna give celebrities cameos, and especially ones that have loved Star Wars and been supportive of the brand their whole like careers. Lizzo is doing Grogu costumes, and Jack Black's just like always been a nerd and a Star Wars fan, so like I thought they were fine and they were cool. We got to see this kooky, part of this story where there's this like utopia going on. All the droid aspects of this were very uh like necessary, and like, kind of showed that droids are a bit more sentient than they're let on. Obviously, like we see droids have personalities and stuff, so that's always a thing in Star Wars, along with the fact that Din has such a problem with droids, and super battle droids killed his family, and for him to be there kicking them around, like just getting some anger out on him, like that was great. People said that episode was atrocious. It's the lowest rated episode of the entire series, and usually that is not from the story, that is from specific points or details that people don't like. And Jack Black and Lizzo was that. And I think with, you know Lizzo, honestly, she garners a lot of hate, like just for being her, which is, sad in itself. But man, this episode sucks. I'm sorry, guys. I've just been complaining the whole time and making it depressing, but it is what it is. I've been biting my tongue this entire season, so you guys got to deal with me. But and then, I mean, after that episode, it leads into 7 and 8, which are absolute bangers from start to finish. And I just there you go. There's your season. Like, I mean, people just expect so much from the show. It's always been 8 episodes. It's always been fairly short, like the episodes themselves. I had to go off, man. I calculated the average run times of the different seasons, and man, I have been triggered overall because it's honestly sad when something that you appreciate and like enjoy so much, honestly, and people have been like saying that like I'm like lying, or that I couldn't possibly like this season so much, and I'm just like, dude, oh my gosh, like just when you enjoy something unapologetically and you just want to share that with, fans who do the same thing, and it really gets annoying. So I do apologize if I'm just ranting, but the finale overall, though, I mean, shit, I really enjoyed it. Like, the Moff Gideon aspects were pretty cool. Obviously, I have a pretty strong theory that he's a clone, and uh I think it might be likely. People don't like Moff Gideon anymore. I don't know why, like because he was so loved in the first 2 seasons, but because he like said a few like corny villain lines, like he's a terrible character now. Which again, I think these corny villain lines may seriously be leading to the fact that he is a clone, but I don't know. I don't know if people can't think as deeply enough to see that, or if they just don't care and they just want to talk crap. But the Gideon stuff was awesome. Din and Grogu, oh, they were so cute the whole time. Like just fighting together, seeing them like be on a mission together, fighting like alongside as equals was like pretty damn cool. Obviously, Din has been in full protector mode like the entire time through season 1 and season 2, and they were like on a mission together, and Din volunteered Grogu to go, like, because he trusts him, he believes he's powerful enough. And I mean, I think Din is smart in doing that. Like, Grogu is the most powerful one out of all of them, and literally saved their lives at the end. Like, Din knows how valuable Grogu is, in terms of his abilities, and like that is just so cool to me. And again, is like the growth between the main characters, which people said wasn't there. So I really enjoyed that fact, and was probably my favorite aspect of the whole episode. Was just the fact that like we got to see them fight together as equals, and like Din saves Grogu, and then Grogu saves Din, and then the Bo-Katan comes in and saves the two of them, and like it was just cool to see all those aspects mending together. And yeah, I don't think it was like the most epic fight between Moff Gideon and Bo necessarily, and like the way he died was whatever. Like, I mean, it didn't have to be like this crazy, insane thing. Not all deaths are like this dramatic, crazy moment. Sometimes you just go up in flames and you die. But thought that was awesome. And then the way that it ended with like, the Mandalorians coming together, retaking Mandalore, lighting the forge. Grogu is fully, adopted as Din's son within their creed, and that is obviously important to both of them. Like, people kind of mistake like the creed is like a negative thing, I think. Like that it's like this crazy religion that Din doesn't want to follow, and I don't agree with that whatsoever. Din is like a pretty diehard Children of the Watch guy. I mean, like that's his entire life. He's been following the creed his entire life. He is a Mandalorian, and that way of living is like really more true Mandalorian than even Bo-Katan to some degree. So, I mean, and Bo says that in the Jack Black episode. She says that Din is just as Mandalorian as any of them, even more. So, I mean, like, it, it's just, I don't think it's right that to say that Din doesn't want to be in the Creed at all, or like that it was walking back his character to want to put his helmet back on and be a part. It's like, no, he's a diehard, just like the armorer is. And I just don't think people realize that about Din. And I love that. I mean, we officially have, they called him Din Grogu, which is pretty interesting. I mean, I think it does sound better than Grogu Jaren. I mean, that's kind of a mouthful. And maybe they just took the first name because Din is a cute name. Din Grogu sounds cool. Like I like the sound of that. I don't know if it's his first name or what, or if it's just a clan name, but like I thought that was cool. So um and then the very ending, it comes full circle to the very first episode where Grief Karga offers them a house on Navarro, and they don't want to accept it because they have other stuff to do. He finally accepts the condo and settles down with his little boy, and he's gonna go off on adventures fighting the freaking Imperials and stuff, and just was a great heartwarming way to end it. And after such a heartbreaking season two, I mean, it feels like a good way to end the season. So I really feel like the first three seasons of The Mandalorian encapsulate the original trilogy like to the fullest degree. I felt this way right when it ended, and it was just giving me original trilogy vibes in the way that A New Hope obviously is like the starter of the trilogy, sets up all the lore, the characters, world builds, kind of just has this like nostalgia to it, and um, the even in the content itself, like season one of The Mandalorian has so many A New Hope references and parallels to it. So I was just getting those vibes. Obviously, season two has Empire Strikes vibes. Like there's a lot more exploration into the characters and the worlds that were there. There's like deeper meanings within the lore with Jedi and Grogu. Like we get some like bigger reveals in this in that season with his name. Obviously, the Luke thing was insane, crazy epic. It's like everybody's favorite. And it breaks your heart at the end, like just like Luke getting his hand chopped off and finding out Vader is his dad, like breaks your heart, and left you wanting more and wanting to know what happens. And then season three is kind of like Return of the Jedi in the way that it's like this kooky, fun, epic, action-packed finale to what would be, a trilogy if they ended it here, but left it on a very happy, fulfilling note where they defeated the bad guy. And honestly, just in a lot of ways, it felt really similar to Return of the Jedi in the way that it was structured. Like starts off hot with all this kookiness. The Anzellans and the pirates really just felt Jabba's palace-y to me, and I don't know. It just I think you get what I'm saying, but it just felt like the original trilogy, and that it really makes me happy, and um, I really loved it. So that's all I got, man. I'm running out of breath, and I know I've been ranting, but I really do appreciate you guys listening, and I really hope you enjoyed The Mandalorian. It has been so much fun covering it every week, and has honestly inspired me to do the podcast so much more. Like I'm really going to struggle and not like it when I don't have an episode of Mando to talk about. So we do have Jedi Survivor coming up next week, or I guess this week when this comes out. I mean, the game looks awesome. I got to get my pre-order in so I can pre-download it, but I'm super excited to play it, and let me know if you guys are playing that as well. And then we have Star Wars Visions Season 2 coming out, which should be awesome. The trailer's out. If you haven't seen that, it looks phenomenal. Looks honestly like it could be better than Season 1, and Season 1 was pretty awesome, in my opinion. So that's coming out on May the 4th, as well as I think that Young Jedi Adventure show on Disney Channel or whatever is coming out too. So still some stuff coming up before Ahsoka comes in August. We won't be completely starving, but nothing like having Mando. So hope you guys enjoyed, and I really appreciate you guys listening. Hit your boy with a review on Apple or Spotify, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, Brody One Kenobi. May the Force be with you. Peace.